All right, a quick pros and cons video on the 2022 Toyota Corolla SE with the manual transmission. If you haven't seen my full in-depth review on this car already, then I will leave a link to that in the description box because that's where I talk about all my in-depth driving thoughts and other things, right? A little bit more nuanced information. It's all going to be in that full review. But let's start out with the first pro, and that is going to be the overall driving feel of this car. Yeah, it might not be the best in class vehicle, but it is by far the most connected experience that you're going to be getting in the compact segment. In fact, in my review, I said that this is kind of like an older feeling car with some of the new school refinements made to it. That's what it feels like to me. And I think drivers that are looking for that more connected experience, they're really going to appreciate the Corolla because, yeah, the Civic and the Mazda 3, the new ones anyway, are really class leading, very impressive for what it is for this segment, but it just feels a little bit more detached than this Corolla. I think it lets in just the right amount of wind noise, engine noise, things like that to make it feel non-fatiguing, but also it lets you know exactly what's going on with the environment around you, with the road surfaces. So yeah, even though it might not be like the quietest car or anything like that, don't let that sound like a con to you because it's those little things that make it feel like you're operating a vehicle, right? Because they have improved this over the previous model years. The previous model years, dude, the engine was so loud. Every time you revved it out, it would just, it was making such a racket, very obnoxious. And also there's a lot more wind noise with it. All that has been greatly improved. It now creates the correct amount of engine noise when you rev it out, and there's plenty of thin sillet being used, sealants, foams, etc., and the overall welding process on these Toyota Lexus cars is pretty advanced, so it definitely reduces any and all gaps within the chassis to help make it quieter, but also a little bit more rigid to drive as well. So it might seem like small, subtle changes, but it adds up to be a pretty exponential difference over even the previous model years. So there you go, that's the first pro. I love how connected it feels. The second pro, definitely going to be the fuel economy. It's rated to get around 30 in the city and 40 on the highway, and that is very accurate. That's even with this 2-liter four-cylinder engine, which produces 169 horsepower and 151 pounds-feet of torque. This is basically the most powerful engine that you can get, and this is what I recommend you getting. You get this with the SE and the XSE. I recommend getting an SE model like you see here for around $24,000 with destination. That's definitely the way to go with this car. Don't overpay for a Corolla product. It's not worth it. There's like an Apex edition and all that with even more stiffer suspension and flow-formed wheels. The vehicle sits about 0.6 inches lower. That's great and all, but again, not really worth paying up for it. This SE also comes with a more sport-tuned suspension, but it doesn't beat you up. There's a Jounce bumper implemented into the suspension of these SE and the XSE models to give you that compliant ride along with the better handling dynamics. So yeah, back to that engine. Don't get the 1.8 liter because it's more efficiency tuned engine. This is efficient enough and it's the most powerful choice because this is already not a quick car. That's one of the cons. It's not a fast vehicle. At least when you get it with this manual transmission, it feels a little bit more fun to drive and you still get amazing real world fuel economy. So there's that. Now this manual transmission is actually both a pro and a con. Occasionally putting it into first gear is a little bit annoying. You're not really sure if it actually went into first gear or not. And there's a slight little whining sound that it's making. It's not bothering me, but it's there, and I just thought I would let you know about it. And this is a new car. I'm literally the first journalist to even check it out. It only has 500 miles on it. But outside of that, I do really enjoy using this manual transmission. I like the throws. I like the way it feels. The clutch is super easy. I mean, it has like a very wide band for the bite point, so you're never going to stall this thing. Another thing I don't like, though, is the throttle pedal. Or at least the way it's spaced out, it's very difficult for me to do a heel-toe downshift in this. Regular blipping of the throttle is very easy. Doing rev match downshifts, super easy, but heel-toe is a little bit more difficult for me. And I have kind of regular size feet. I wear a size 11 shoe. But overall, I like this manual transmission very much, though. It definitely adds to the experience, and it's the only way I can get this. The CVT is something to consider if you don't know how to drive a manual, but you'll be able to get a little bit more options with the SE model of the Corolla if you do get the CVT transmission. And I've tested it in the 2020 model year, and it's not a bad transmission at all. It's a pretty decent CVT, all things considered. Another pro is the overall interior solidity. Even though this is a compact car, it doesn't feel like complete dirt in here. This feels well put together. It has a minimalistic design, but it still gives you enough physical buttons and switches to interact with, like for the HVAC controls and some basic controls right here, like for your home button, your menu button. You have physical buttons there and a physical volume knob and a tuning knob with more buttons on the steering wheel. So super easy to use, no learning curve. You have your Apple CarPlay, your Android Autos, Alexa, I think. All the nonsense, it's all built in here and it's all very easy to use. But one con with this interior space is the headroom. So the headroom is pretty restricted here. I'm 5'11", so I basically fit in every car. But if you're over 6 feet tall, like 6'3" or 4", something like that, you might be brushing your head up against the ceiling of this car, both in the front seats and the rear seats. But the legroom isn't bad when you put the seat all the way back, and also the back seat space is aided by the fact that there's toe room underneath, so you can kind of slide your feet under there, and the backing of the seats is also soft, so you can kind of dig your knees into that. And you have some convenient features like automatic headlights, automatic high beams, one-touch up and down windows for all 4 windows. Super convenient feature right there. But another con, though, is the lack of a physical handbrake. I'm not super happy about that. So you have this electronic one. The one good thing about this electronic parking brake is the fact that it will turn on and off automatically when you put the vehicle into first gear and you set off, or into reverse to back up. And another big pro, like I mentioned before, is with the refinement changes that they made for this new Corolla. The engine is much quieter than the previous model years, and the overall vehicle, a lot less wind noise and things like that until you get up to the highway speeds, which is totally natural. So I really appreciate those refinement changes. It's a very non-fatiguing car, and the seats also help out with that. Very comfortable cloth seats. It's not electronic powered seats, however. It is an SE model, so keep that in mind. But it is super comfortable, and I do appreciate that. The leather-wrapped steering wheel is also a great thing to have, especially in a lower trim level like this SE. And let's wrap this up by talking about the trunk space. The trunk space isn't bad. It's not as big as the Civic, but it's still more than enough for most people, and you can fold down the seat 60/40, and you also get a spare tire in the back as well. So overall, nice, solid little vehicle. Definitely class competitive. At first, I was going to really roast this car, especially with my prior experience with the previous model years of the Corolla, but after driving this 2022, it's a vast improvement. It's something to consider because people who love that Toyota feel, the way they drive, they keep coming back to this company, and know that this latest model year is certainly one to consider, either to lease, to finance, whatever, and keep it for a long time. And most importantly, it feels connected more so than the brand new Civics and the Mazda 3s. So I think a lot of drivers will appreciate that. And that about does it for this video. Thanks again for watching. Take care and goodbye.